welcome to our channel Movie Explanation. Today I gonna explain the movie Alice, which is released on 2009. Now let's get start. The year is 2009, and young Alice works as a judo teacher in the city. Today Alice will introduce Jack to her mother Carol, who is all the family she has left. Her father left when she was 10 and Alice has been looking for him since then. On his way to Alice's place, Jack can't help feeling like he's being followed, but he decides. The dinner goes well, and after Carol goes to bed, Jack receives a message that says, "Nervous." Jack asks Alice if she'd like to meet his family, which she finds very sudden. Then he gives her a little box with a beautiful ring that Jack's family has had for a long time, but Alice doesn't like it. She thinks Jack is moving too fast, so she's gonna need some time to think about this. Jack hugs her before leaving. After Jack's gone, Alice discovers that when he hugged her, he put the box in her pocket. When she runs out of the building to follow him, she discovers some men in black suits are taking Jack away in a van. At that moment, Alice is approached by the White Rabbit, who claims to be a friend of. He explains Jack stole the ring and was arrested for it, and now he wants the ring. Alice hides the box behind her back and takes out the ring before attacking Rabbit, but the man pushes her away and makes her drop the box. Rabbit grabs the box and runs to the back of an alley where he jumps into a mirror. Alice does the same, which makes her fall through a tunnel that drops her inside and she sees Rabbit run out of the building and goes after him, but she freezes when she finds. Alice continues to follow Rabbit and sees him enter a different building with the Rabbit logo. The men in black are taking Jack there as well. Suddenly an aircraft begins flying over the area, and when its light touches Alice's arm, scared, Alice enters the building, where she finds a little bottle on a table that says, "There are 2 bean slots on the walls," and when Alice looks through them, she notices. At that moment the walls start closing around Alice and Rabbit talks through her to the slot, calling her an oyster before sending her away. The room begins moving because it's become a box, and the aircraft takes away all the people Alice saw in the room, herself included. Alice notices the base of the box is a hatch, so she uses her hairpin to get it open and hears her name, thinking she's the Alice of legend. Ratcatcher covers the tattoo on Alice's arm with an old rag and makes her follow him too. However, Ratcatcher grabs Alice and takes her through the back door to meet the real boss. Behind this, the Hatter, who pays Ratcatcher with some tea to make him leave. Hatter explains that this is Wonderland, and that the Alice from the story was here 150. Only people from Alice's world can become oysters, and the men in black, called the suits, bring them over through the looking glass to drain their emotions at the casino. These emotions are what make the tease, so while usually entering the casino would be dangerous, Hatter has some contacts that can allow him to take Alice there to find Jack. They leave through a back door that comes out on another high edge, which makes Alice. Hatter helps her move by holding her hand. Meanwhile, White Rabbit goes to the casino, where all the oysters are connected to the. Every time they have a good emotion thanks to the casino's entertainment, it's sent to the underground lab where Carpenter and Walrus make the tease. Whenever an oyster begins to remember their real life, the suits take them away to a waiting. Rabbit takes the box to the King and Queen of Hearts, who had taken control of Wonderland. When they open the box and find the ring isn't there, the Queen becomes furious and fires White Rabbit after he explains Alice is on the loose. Then she asks the suits to get the Mad March, her favorite assassin who lost his head. Carpenter isn't done fixing him yet, but since the Queen wants him now, he improvises by. Carpenter presents the Mad March, who immediately asks him to capture Alice. Back to Alice, Hatter makes her take a special elevator that carries them to the Great Library, where they keep all the history and art of Wonderland so that the Queen won't burn it. They also give home to refugees who value wisdom over the Queen's quick fix, who Hatter is, and he pays them with cheese. Hatter and Alice go to see Dodo, the man in charge of the library, to ask for his help finding Jack. Hatter thinks Alice can pay with her ring, and when she shows it to Dodo he freaks out. That's the Stone of Wonderland, which controls the looking glass and could help them bring. Dodo tries to take it by force, and when Hatter tries to defend Alice, Dodo shoots him. Scared, Alice pushes Dodo off and runs back to the elevator. Hatter suddenly stands up, revealing he's fine, and he starts a fight with Dodo as Alice rushes to their side and with her judo skills, she beats Dodo up, then she drags Hatter into the elevator to escape. She discovers Hatter wears body armor under his clothes and yells at him for trying to. Hatter wants to send Alice back to her world through the mirror, but Alice still wants to save Jack and perhaps buy his freedom with the ring. Find Mad March and the suits there, who immediately. Hatter takes Alice to the river and they escape on a boat. Once they're far enough, Hatter confesses that now his shop has been ransacked. He's homeless and wants to leave for her world. Suddenly an aircraft begins following them, thus Hatter stops at the nearest shore and Hatter wants to lead their pursuers into a trap, so he runs through the woods to get. When the beast shows up, Hatter and Aleve begin running and accidentally fall into a moment later, a man shows up to insult them. It's Charlie the White Knight, who put up. However, Charlie becomes more friendly when he hears Alice's name and sees the ring. While the Mad March begins tracking them through the forest, Charlie takes Hatter and Alice. Nowadays it's abandoned because the Queen wiped off all the knights years ago, and Charlie, he still takes care of the throne with the skeleton of the old king. Seeing all this makes Hatter change his mind. He'll help Alice go home but he won't leave. The next morning, Alice is shocked to find her cat Dinah, who died when she was 10. Dinah begins running, and Alice follows her to find a door on an old tree stump. When she enters it, Dinah smiles at her with a creepy grin and the door closes. Then Alice begins looking for her father and finds the original Wonderland book on the floor. Moments later, Hatter and Charlie wake up to find Alice gone, so they go looking for. Meanwhile, Alice walks into an open area on purpose in order for Mad March to catch her. They take her to see the Queen and Alice explains she's hidden the ring, but she'll give it to the Queen if she frees Jack and sends them both home. The Queen calls for Jack, and when he shows up, Alice is shocked to discover Jack is the. Jack says that Alice means nothing to her and that she stole the ring. Even worse, in this world Jack has a fiancée known as the Duchess, who comes to meet Alice. Jack takes Alice to the side and apologizes for everything before putting something in. Then Jack leaves, and when the Duchess shows her jealousy, he asks her to get him out of. Duchess refuses to help him leave, but she takes him to their room to make him drink honesty tea. Jack mentions he needed Alice, but when the Duchess is about to ask what for, she's called. If the Duchess wants to stay, she has until morning to make Jack talk. In the meantime, Alice opens her hands and discovers that Jack gave her her dad's watch. The suits take Alice to the truth room, handled by the twin doctors. The twins hypnotize Alice to make her think she's a kid at home again and they guide her. Then they make the floor disappear and leave Alice hanging on a wooden plank, which is. Alice's fear of heights makes her accept to share the location of the ring, but she asks. Outside the casino, Hatter and Charlie are pretending to be entertainers asking for a job, but the guard doesn't believe them so Hatter knocks him out. Then Charlie uses his mystical powers to find the truth room, and with the door open, Alice jumps over the hole and is safely caught by Hatter. As suits begin chasing them, the trio runs to the elevator and reaches the roof, where Charlie isn't a good fighter, but Hatter and Alice manage to beat them up. Alice is terrified, but Hatter makes her ride with him. As they fly away, Jack sees them through the window. The suits have hovercrafts too and go after the trio, shooting at their rides to make. Back in the casino, Jack pretends to be unconscious, knocks out the guard and ties up the Duchess in order to escape. The twins take the map to the Queen and she reads it to find an address on Earth. The guards also bring the news of Jack's escape, so the king sends everyone available to find both Alice and Jack. Moments later, Alice and Hatter reach a beach and begin looking for Charlie, who got separated. Alice tells Hatter that Jack isn't actually bad and something fishy is going on, because, thanks to him she knows her dad is here in Wonderland. However, Hatter thinks Jack's lying to set up a trap. After they bump into Charlie, Alice admits she wants to go back to the casino, but Hatter wants her to help the resistance. Dodo had been bad but he's only a sub-boss. The real head of the organization is Caterpillar. Alice decides to give them a chance, so Hatter takes the boat back to the city to send a. He finds Dormouse and asks him to get in contact with Caterpillar, saying they're ready to. Back in the forest, Alice and Charlie make camp. Charlie praises Alice for how brave she's been and confesses he's only alive because, when the Queen showed up to kill the knights, he had only been a squire and he ran away. The next day he took the White Knight's armor and wished for a second chance, which he thinks is Alice's mission. Moments later, Hatter comes back and tells Alice Caterpillar will soon send an agent. By Jack. It turns out Jack has been working undercover for the resistance all along because he also hates what the Queen's doing to Wonderland. He stole the ring from his mother to instigate a coup, but it didn't work out, and he lied in front of the Queen to protect Alice. He's the agent Caterpillar sent, and he can take Alice to see her dad, so Alice finally reveals she left the ring in the hand of the Skeleton King. After taking the ring, Jack wants to take Alice away, but he refuses to bring Hatter too, but Hatter doesn't want to come anyway. After riding for a while, Alice and Jack stop to rest, and Alice asks about the Duchess. Jack explains he feels nothing for her, she's just his mother's pawn to control him. He also swears his heart belongs to Alice. Then Jack urges Alice to keep going because he heard something. It turns out Hatter and Charlie are following them in secret. Once they reach the city, Jack and Alice enter the Hospital of Dreams, where they finally. He explains how the emotions of oysters greatly hurt Wonderland, showing her some examples. They need to send all the oysters back to Earth, and the only one that can do it is Alice's dad. Unfortunately, he's currently an amnesiac. That's why Jack went looking for Alice. The resistance thinks she can make her dad see reason. Now Alice thinks her relationship with Jack had been a lie, but she still wants to see. Caterpillar reveals his agents managed to find him, and when he presses a button, Alice's dad shows up. It turns out he's the carpenter. He doesn't remember Alice, he only remembers fake memories the Queen put in him to make. This makes Alice cry, which causes Carpenter to call her Jellybean, her childhood nickname. Feeling some hope, Alice shares childhood anecdotes while putting the watch on Carpenter's wrist, but at that moment, Mad March and the suits show up. When they leave the building, they're seen by Hatter and Charlie. Hatter wants to help and asks Charlie to join him in a surprise attack, but Charlie gets scared and runs away, leaving Hatter to get arrested as well. Moments later, the Queen receives the ring and is told about Jack's plan. To be sure she won't be betrayed again, the Queen tells Carpenter that she'll kill Alice. But Carpenter doesn't care, which hurts Alice deeply. Seeing he doesn't remember anything, the Queen sends Carpenter back to his lab. Jack asks the Queen to let Alice return to her world, pointing out that if she gets killed, the King doesn't like it, but Queen accepts. Alice will be thrown in the mirror and Jack. Meanwhile, Charlie is overwhelmed with guilt, but seeing the skeleton of his king inspires. Hatter is in the truth room, where the twins are trying to make him confess the location. Since they're unsuccessful, Mad March takes over, and when he comes closer, Hatter uses. Exchanging a few hits allows Hatter to also break the illusion wall. Alice is taken to the mirror, which is being used with the ring to bring oysters from her. While the suits come by to take the ring back to the Queen, Alice sees how kids are being brought as well, and it makes her so angry that she begins fighting the suits. After pushing them all away, she runs to the roof, where she pushes another man off too. Alice fights her fears and flies away to go after the guys with the ring, hiding in the. Moments later, the Queen receives the ring but also a warning. The casino is under attack. They think there's an army outside, but it's actually Charlie, who has brought all the. The Queen sends the suits to attack and Charlie defends himself the best he can with a giant. With everyone distracted, Alice re-enters the casino with no issues. Meanwhile, Jack is being kept at the truth room, but the Duchess shows up to rescue him, because she has fallen for him for real and only worked for the Queen to survive. At that moment the suits find Alice, so she hides in the main casino room. There are guards there too, but Hatter arrives to knock them out. After they hug, they block the doors and proceed with an idea Alice got from caterpillars. Alice gets on the stage and begins telling everyone to wake up because they need to remember. Her speech makes everyone slowly start to remember, and when Carpenter sees this Carpenter leaves the lab and Walrus tries to stop him, so Carpenter fights him. Alice continues to talk to everyone to make them upset with the situation, these negative. Suddenly the suits finally push the door open and start to fire, but Carpenter arrives too. Alice doesn't trust him, thus Carpenter begins sharing some of their memories together and father and daughter reunite with a hug, but at that moment, Walrus reveals he's alive, and comes to shoot Alice. Carpenter sees him and gets in the way of the bullet to save his daughter. Hatter shoots Walrus before he can try again, and all this death causes the lab to start. The oysters run away, and Carpenter says goodbye to Alice so that Hatter can drag her away. The Queen wants to evacuate too, but the King decides to stay because he's tired of working. Duchess and Jack manage to run outside too, and when Charlie wakes up, he shoots one last. When the building finally explodes, he thinks he hit it. The Queen tries to order his men to catch Alice, but Alice points out she doesn't have. Then Alice asks for the ring, and Hatter threatens to cut it off if necessary. The Queen surrenders and returns the ring, causing everyone to celebrate. Moments later, the Resistance activates the mirror to help all the oysters go home. Alice says goodbye to Charlie, and when Jack comes over to ask her to stay as his queen, they say goodbye with a hug, and when the Hatter notices, he thinks he's lost his chance. With Alice, Hatter decides to stay in Wonderland and tells Alice she should go back, which breaks her. Then Alice crosses the mirror and falls back on Earth, losing consciousness on the streets. When they return home, Alice throws away all the tools she had been using to look for her. Suddenly someone rings the bell. It's Hatter, who decided to come after all. Alice receives him with a hug and the two of them finally kiss.